So I started out as a leftist who hated the establishment, who then became what most would call, and I called myself, a liberal who hated the establishment. Then later on I became a conservative who hated the establishment. But then after practicing being a conservative, and then understanding where my conservative values came from, I realized the reason that the leftists, the liberals, and the conservatives all hate the establishment is because of our understanding of who the establishment is. We hate the government, and that'll always be the case. And we follow the government thinking it's going to solve our problems. But having lived as a conservative and understanding who the real establishment is, the Father above, that leads to understanding of how things are and why things are. And when you understand how things are and why things are, it's easier to discern where we are headed. It's like understanding a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And the numbers are the details. And too few actually pay attention to the actual equation. And when you understand the equation, the numbers don't matter. It'll change the outcome. But you'll know based on the equation what the outcome will be. Whereas if we just understand the numbers and don't understand the equation, then we're the blind leading the blind. We're thinking numerically rather than systematically. It's like this. You have two men, two fields, and each man can 10 times a day bring a bucket to and from the river to water the crops. Each crop needs 1 bucket of water a day. How many crops could those two men water each day at maximum efficiency? 20 crops. 10 times 2, you have 20. That's thinking numerically. And thinking numerically oftentimes cuts off your thinking outside of the numbers. Focusing on only those numbers and not necessarily, because here's the deal, right? You've got two guys, you got 20 crops, you're like, I'm working at 100% efficiency. There's a guy that comes along, the boss man comes along, and is like, yep, you guys can do this 10 times a day, right? And they both say, well, yeah, boss. And so, given that fact, they are working at 100% efficiency. And at 100% efficiency, thinking numerically, you can get 20 crops watered a day. Now maybe you're like, well, that means if I got another guy, that's another 10. And, well, mathematically you're correct. But then I come along. Now there's a fourth guy. I got the 3 guys there being all happy about the fact that they're working at 100% efficiency. And And I come along and I'm like, what's up, guys? They're like, well, we're just admiring the fact that we're working at 100% efficiency. And I go, what do you mean? Well, I've got this guy here, he can take 10 buckets a day. This guy here, he can take 10 buckets a day. I got 2 fields, I got 10 crops in each of them. That's 100% efficiency. And I said, have you ever thought of bringing the river to the field? And that's the thinking systematically. That's the thinking outside of the box. That's the understanding of how multiple facets, disciplines, domains actually connect with each other in ways that we don't necessarily see, because we're so focused on the details. We're so focused on the numbers. We don't see the 30,000 foot view. We don't notice that most of the United States looks like a freaking bingo card. Anyway, so I started out as a leftist who hated the establishment, who turned into a liberal who hated the establishment, who turned into a conservative who hated the establishment, until I realized, oh shoot, I'm following the wrong establishment. And when you start to follow the right establishment, you'll understand that no matter what side of this government you're supporting, it's not supporting you. They take turns being more obvious about it, so that way at no point would we ever feel like there's a good or a bad that was too bad, right? Nah, it's not going to be too bad. But as long as we're not going too bad, and we just keep going down this slippery slope slowly, we'll boil like those frogs. So don't be a leftist, don't be a liberal, don't be a conservative. Be a believer and a follower of the Father. And after that, the other stuff, like I said, you'll realize that while I will absolutely not ever vote Democrat, I mean, as long as I'm alive again, ever, you'd have to really get me. You'd have to really do some convincing to get me to vote Republican as well. Because while they say the right things, you know the problem. You know the sick and vicious cycle of this is if the conservatives, when I was a leftist, weren't so damn weak, we wouldn't have fallen down this slippery slope so far that now the guy who was a liberal is looked at as a conservative is looked at as the far right, and what's actually needed in this nation is farther right than that. Because the far right in this nation is like, we've been incentivizing replacing our own population with immigrants for the last 40 years rather than focusing on propaganda to maybe like push the nuclear family, or in fact we've done the exact opposite for if you're a millennial, almost your whole life at this point. I'm at the like very like beginning part of millennial. I don't get to claim Gen X. I don't get to do that. But like by the time I was like 12 or 13, it was already starting to be retarded. And I just don't. We gave them such a hard time when they were like, you need to put explicit content on those CDs. And now here we are like, you need to ban porn. Well, okay, maybe they were right. But no, what did we do? We mocked and ridiculed those people who said to put those explicit stickers on those CDs. We mocked and ridiculed them and said, nah, kids will be fine, kids will be alright. Nope, not alright. But yeah, I just wanted to, I thought it was clever, right? I started out as a leftist and I hated the establishment. Then I became a liberal and I hated the establishment. Then I became a conservative and I hated the establishment. And it was only once I realized that I was trusting and believing and following the wrong establishment that I realized that it doesn't matter if you're a leftist, a liberal, or a conservative. If you're not following the right establishment, it don't end well. Not for you, yourself, your family, your community, your town, your city, your state, your nation. Nope. The whole of the world. You follow the wrong establishment, it ends badly. Anyway, Dylan Tedder, flipping tables for Christ. Take care. Love y'all. Be blessed.